Thank you, everyone, for coming to another episode of the MSP Cyber Roundtable. I'm actually on an airplane right now, so we just spent the week in ChannelCon. So this is a pre-record. As we speak, I'm at the end of last week, and I'm anticipating that I'm going to be rolling the dice on Monday with these Delta delays. I don't know what to expect, but that CrowdStrike failure last week is still drifting along here as we're recording. I have with me today Garret, Grajek, Bill Lauterbach. We're going to go over three ways that two-factor is not enough. We're going to talk about that. This is old turf for Garret, but I think many of you have just sort of finished battling the two-factor fight with your users, but guess what? It's not over. So we're going to get into that in a few minutes. But first, guys, why don't you introduce yourselves? Who wants to go first here?
Take it away, Bill.
All right.
You got the elk.
Hi, Bill Lauterbach. I'm Vice President of Channel Sales at YouAttest. Live in Prescott, Arizona, up in the mountains. Avid archery hunter and love my bourbon. Speaking of bourbon, last weekend I opened a 75-year-old bottle of bourbon. It was spectacular. It was Old Forester, and it was bottled in 1949.
So,
I hear a story about that one day. Reach out to me.
Oh, well, I want to know where that bottle's been for the last 75 years. Is it?
Actually, it's with this guy got my wife's great uncle got a hole in one. They gave it to him. So his daughters had it all these years. She brought it up to my house 4 months ago, and she said, do what you want with it. And I had a buddy over for the weekend, so we drank it. Well, we didn't drink it all. We drank half of it.
Yeah, to be continued. What are you drinking right now? What do you got?
Seltzer water.
Seltzer water? Are you a plain seltzer guy?
Yes.
Yeah, me too. Although I like real lemon. So anyway,
real lemon, yeah.
So we're gonna get to your story in a few minutes. But Bill, you're in channel sales for YouAttest right now. But where did you come from before YouAttest? Because YouAttest is only a few years old. So
right,
what have you been doing your whole life?
Well, so I spent 20 years selling battery backup systems for computer rooms. Did that for 20 years, and then I got into software sales. Went to work for Accenture for 8 years, doing consulting around green IT data centers, and then I was over at my best friend's house in San Diego, messing around one day, helping him out, and he put me on the phone with Garret. And then a year later, Garret and I hooked back up, and now I'm over here working for him.
So you're an energy dude, and you're in the mountains, and I'm just imagining like your whole house is like powered by some secret like power system. What do you are you just connected into the grid? What do you have?
Yeah, we're connected into the grid. Yeah. But we do have a well. We do have a well, so
okay.
Free water.
So you sold batteries for a long time and power systems, and so I guess over time these looked really different, right? There was the freestanding units that were really big, and then they got small, and then they got rack mounted, and then they sort of vaporized into the cloud. So like what was the specific types of gear that you had go through your hands?
Well, it was big 3-phase UPSs, but it just like you said, it all went to rack mount, where you could shrink it and take modules like 1 kVA modules or 10 kVA modules and stick them in a rack and build whatever size UPS you wanted. So it really evolved, and they really came down in both footprint and the need for air conditioning. They became very efficient. So.
And you can I'm just remembering the days you couldn't even move these things.
No.
So, all right. So you landed at YouAttest. We'll talk more about that later.
All right.
Um, what's your meal you're looking forward to tonight? Do you have
I think we'll probably wind up at this really good Mexican restaurant in Solana Beach.
All right. That's my type of food. I love everything spicy. All right, Garrett.
No, that was good. Bill has a personality.
He does, and
that's a
I
real out back there. And sometimes he takes his laptop and he points it in the backyard, and there's all sorts of stuff moving out there. So I love it. Yeah.
well, and I feel like Bill's the guy to track down at the conference to see what he's got stuffed in his bag.
Bill's got the personality. Yeah.
See what I snuck in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Garrett. Short anecdote here. We had a passing relationship in a previous life when I was trying to buy something you were trying to sell, but we could talk about that some other day. But I know this moment, this tiny little slice of something from your previous life, but how did you end up in YouAttest? Like what came before?
Yeah, because what your reference is, I built a two-factor product from scratch, and it was because I was an SE. I was a SE at a great company called Security Dynamics that became RSA, which is still a great company, and then another great company called Integrity, and they're SSO. And it baffled my brain that you needed two products and no one would combine the two. So I combined the two. I literally combined the two and created a two-factor IDP, which I was ranting yesterday, someone about patents, is I could have patented, my patent attorney told, because I patented X509 and all this other stuff. I have 11 patents in authentication, but I could have patented first the concept of a two-factor IDP. And I was like, well, why is that important? I don't know. Okta, Jump Cloud, Azure AD, all that kind of stuff. So now when I talk about patents with people, I go, patent the big idea first. Anyways, there was a bit of a tangent, but sure.
Well, I remember I ran into you because two-factor wasn't enough. Coincidentally, I was working in the healthcare space, and one of these funny things about the healthcare space is you have this super regulated data, and it flies all over the place, sometimes into unregulated spaces, which is very scary. But that was then, plus 10 years or so. Now we all have like highly regulated data flying everywhere into unregulated spaces. So like healthcare was tip of the spear there, but now in this post-COVID world, it's like every company is like that, right?
Like I say, everyone has sensitive data, and like, oh no, I don't. I go, hold it. Elementary schools have sensitive data. It's called personal healthcare information on every kid. So everyone has some sensitive data they have to be protecting and securing, right?
All right. So you were working in security a long time, and you've continued to do that. But how'd you get started in security?
Wow, I don't get to tell that story much because I had a one-way ticket to Singapore, which I did eventually go to, and I did contract programming for a long time. And then this girl called me. This is in Newport Beach, okay, a little north of Solana Beach. And this girl called me. I was like, oh, great. I did that. I think I asked her out of the party the other day. And she goes, hi, Garrett. I'm like, hi, whatever your name is, because I can't remember. And she goes, yeah. I go, do you want to go out? She goes, yeah, but I have a job offer for you. I'm like, what? And it turned out to be SE position at Security Dynamics. And
so you didn't end up going?
No, and I wound up literally not going to Singapore. I took the job in the spot, and I wound up living in Newport Beach. And then a beautiful woman moved into my house, married her, and that's been my life. Yes.
Yeah, I had a similar. I think we've all had those moments in our career, right?
Yeah. You're like you're going one way, and then you take a call, and you're like, yeah, I can see this, And I remember when I went over to the SSO company, the manager met me outside the airport. And he's a very, very functional guy. I won't mention his name because I'll say, and he was hammered. And he just hired me on the spot and says, come on, you come over to us. And I was like, okay, let's do it, And let's go. I don't know if it was on bourbon, Bill, but he was like a Scotch malt drinker and that kind of stuff, So, yeah.
All right. So I'm glad you got to tell that story then. I could ask more about that. But all right. So thanks for joining us. We'll get more into YouAttest. But first, we do a lecture every day. Today's lecture is part of a series of lectures. We're going to be going over the many cybersecurity certifications for individuals. Many of the people watching this show, many of our viewers are either already studying for a certification, have achieved some certification, but are thinking about their next one. So we're going to spend some time going over that. Today we're going to be talking about ISC squared. So with that, I'm going to launch into it here, guys. So, I've had an ISC squared certification for a long time. I have a CISSP. I think I don't have a dog in the fight of like which certification is best in the world, but it's certainly true that the CISSP is the most generally recognized expert level certification for cybersecurity in the world. So if you're trying to get a cybersecurity focused role, it's probably the most useful certification in the overall job market. With that, ISC Squared is this large organization. They're in over 100 countries, maybe over 200 countries. And so, the cybersecurity community has really come together to influence, how that certification is steered really everywhere. So I'm going to go over a few of the certifications that ISC Squared has put together, and then we'll move on to the topic of the day. So first, while the CISSP is the most recognized certification, they do have a whole bunch of others. They've got a slew of entry level to intermediate certifications, and then they have some what they call concentrations, the ISS series that are more advanced. I'll get in more into those in a moment. I think that CISSP has highly recognized by employers. Largely, the others, like most cybersecurity certifications, are not well known outside the cybersecurity industry. At the bottom entry level, and one interesting thing to note here is ISC Squared currently, not only do they not have any work experience requirement, I believe they're currently certifying this one for free. You can go and take this certification, and you can achieve it without paying them any money. At least right now, that's the case. It's their entry level starting place. It's like the toehold in the door of the cyber industry. They go over some basics of cybersecurity domains. Up from there, we've got a few entry level certifications. Looks like I might have. I'm not sure what order these are in. Okay, so we've got the cloud. I'm going to go ahead to some of these. Okay, so we've got a GRC certification. This one requires 2 years of experience. This is the type of thing you need to satisfy evidencing or assessment in cybersecurity. We've got secure development certification. It requires 4 years work experience before you can achieve that. We've got a general sort of entry level security administrator. I guess this would be like a sysadmin that's slightly higher than that entry level. You have to have at least a year of experience exposed to cybersecurity. And then you've got these intermediate certifications, and they've got a CCSP in cloud security. It's a cloud-oriented version, or they take some of the concepts from the CISSP, but just as it relates to cloud infrastructures, which is a little bit simpler to study for or understand, because you don't need to know all of cybersecurity history and all the different types of systems that could be implemented. You only need to understand those cloud systems. So that's a 5-year journey before you're ready to take that certification. And then there's the CISSP. And this one's the most recognizable. I believe there's like 100,000 people on the planet that have this certification, somewhere in that range. And it's the reason why it's the most recognized. In addition to that, many governments around the world, and I mean both the East and West, so from China to Europe to the United States, these certifications are recognized in evidencing security capabilities to take government jobs. Um, and then we have the most advanced, what they call concentrations. Um, and largely, I have not seen these in job posts in terms of these are required for a job, with one exception. I know the federal government, for some very high end security work, they do require a high end security certification. So the ISSEP or ISSAP are required for those high-end engineering jobs in the U.S. federal government. The ISSMP may be required for again some of those high-end management jobs in the government. So these are, this is it gives you a pathway after you become what's called a cybersecurity expert to continue to focus your craft in a specific area of cybersecurity. Because the thing about the CISSP is what it says is that you have an expert level knowledge of all of cybersecurity, which is a funny way of looking at things because no one knows everything, right? But the expectation of having a CISSP is that no matter what security question is asked, you understand how it relates to security concepts and you know how to navigate to find an answer or a solution. With an ISSAP or EP, it's understood that actually you've got some practice competencies in these areas. Same thing with the ISSMP. With that, I think that's it on the ISC squared certifications for today.
And let me give one shout out to ISC squared. If you memorize the questions in the back of the book, you do well in the test. And that's not true for all of them. And I just took another one, and I found the CISSP to be a very straightforward test. I don't know.
Well,
maybe your experience was different.
That's easy for you to say, Garrett. You've been around the block a while. A lot of people really struggle with that.
Really? Okay. Well, and this is, I don't know if I should be embarrassed of this. I mean, so I took the CISSP twice, and you're like, well, a lot of people do. I go, no, that's not what I mean. I took it and I passed, and then I let my 3 years go up without doing any, what do you call those things?
Oh, yeah, the CP. Yeah.
The CPs. I didn't know anything you were supposed to do them. And so I'm like, oh, F myself. I got to do these things. And I was trying to do them. They wouldn't let me do them. So I had to take the test over again. So I passed it twice or whatever, But yeah, there you go.
So I will tell you that I sat in a workshop where I went through, it was like a multi-day training before you take the test. And, I was furiously taking notes. I had already studied and I had worked in security for a long time, but I decided that I wanted to get credentialed.
I think you have to study. I mean,
you have to study. But let me tell you, the other people in the room, and there was a whole room full of people, they had also studied. And I think I was the only one that passed.
Wow.
So
okay. Hey, I'm not. I just took the CGIT, which stands for something. The ISACA Certificate for Governance Enterprise, Certified in Governance of Enterprise IT. You can say that 9 times. Anyways, that was a hard test.
Yeah. I mean, studying does make it easy to answer the questions. You're right, but only if you also have the experience to make sense of what you're studying. Because honestly, the study material it's deep and wide, right? Anyway.
Yeah.
So let's get into topic of the day here. So we're here to talk about why 2-factor is not enough. Garrett's really a resident expert on this, and I would say like my expertise is here, and his is like above the top of the screen here because you spent many years deep in really like forging where we are right now in the world in 2-factor, right? Like you were cutting edge, creating those solutions, and when there were limitations in those solutions, really pushing those boundaries. But we're sort of in a post 2-factor world right now. So what is that?
I like that. That's pretty good, Matthew. It is like a post 2-factor world. We the battle's over, and is two-factor good? I mean, it is good, guys. It's good. It's not only good. It's what we need. I mean, no one's going to argue that password is the right way to do it. It's just was a way. It was a convenient way. Blah blah blah. But it's flawed. I mean, it's flawed, and it's hackable and whatever. My rant against two-factor is not that it's needed. First of all, I look at everyone and say, yeah, you should use two-factor. There's really good two-factor. I mean, who doesn't take their phone and I do Google Auth all the time, and I got I have to scroll down now and find out which app I'm doing what it is. But it's not a panacea. That's what people confuse authentication with identity, and that's my rant on the topic.
Well, that's a really important point. So I know we have some specific areas to discuss here today, but we should probably lay out for those of us that didn't think the CISSP was easy, the difference between authentication, authorization, identity, right? We have systems that have lists of these are the things you're allowed to access as a user, right? And that is authorization, right? Are we authorized to do a thing? But then we have authentication. Am I who I, say I am, right? And they're separate issues, right? And then in addition to that, how much do we trust, each of those, right? So you can limit what someone's able to do to just their job functions, right? And that reduces the risk of them if their account gets hacked. It reduces the risk of them as an insider threat, right? But the issue of, hey, has someone gotten a hold of this account credential, right? We also need to, how much do we trust this person really is who we say they are, right?
Exactly. And that's where I think people confuse two-factor and whatever. Two-factor is, I don't know what analogy you want. Either you want the Matrix analogy or you want the, God, what is that? Try to see the brain. Who's it? Alice in Wonderland analogy. Okay, the Matrix analogy. A lot of people understand and go, okay. You hand someone a set of keys, he walks down doors, and then that's what he's able to open, right? And you hand them the right keys, right? And the Alice in Wonderland analogy is, okay, great. I mean, it's all just random and you just keep trying. And authentication is actually a bit of both. What I see happening in the identity now is people with a false sense of understanding that, well, great, I put a two-factor up. Now my identity is secure. And the identity is the huge circle. It is the big Venn diagram of this. Authentication, authorization, accounting, authentication, etc. And it's all bundled in together. Think of the world, and that's where I started, was an application programmer. Think of the world as an application, and we start getting better at authentication. What I mean by that is that the application is completely, he's blind. He's turned the other way. And he just trusts someone to feed it an identity, okay? Because it's like, oh, okay, when you give me the identity, I'll do my mappings. I know what to authorize this guy. But until that, he's just, he's that blind cavefish and just, looking and bumping into things. So if people understood authentication that way better, they would understand that not only, this is where authentication has to go, not only should they use two-factor, but they really should be passing to that application some level of trust. How much do you trust this user? I mean, I did this authentication, but I don't know. I mean, the website's been hacked 47 times this last week, right? We have 3 phishing attacks already on this account today. With this ID that we use is coming from a source that is known to always be hacking us. That's not being passed on to the application. What's being passed on is a binary, yeah, that's Garret, or a no, I don't think it's Garret. Let me authenticate him another way. That's what I see is wrong with authentication.
Well, I think the the why, right? Like I think we could dig in on the why, and you've got some notes here, and I would love
Yeah.
to make this gritty and talk about like the ways that this could fall down. So you've got these technical attacks that I think really illustrate all the ways this can go wrong. I know that I've talked about some of these before, but
Yeah.
do you want to
So
narrate through some of
first
these?
of all, the geeky guys in there out there, and God bless you, I'm accused and rightfully so, geeky, they would say, okay, well, the technical are Garrett, you're going to talk about SMS. Okay, fine, I'll get it out of the way. I'm going to talk about SMS interception, right? Or the mobile home provider is the mobile phone provider is hacked, and therefore, or someone sets up some type of proxy between the SMS and whatever, and they grab it and they replay it. Okay, that's when I say technical attack, I really mean that's 5 or 10%. The other 90%, and that's where application programmers usually win at this stuff, and they understand it's a form, right? That whatever is the authentication, it's really just a form. Okay, so figure out the page, figure out the session ticket, just stuff it in there. Grab it from somewhere else and whatever. Most hacks, most beginning around authentication, I'm not putting down SMS. I'm certainly not putting down wonderful things like YubiKey and all that kind of stuff. But the implementation of two-factor is very susceptible. So to me, when I say technical attack, yes, I mean, yes, things like SMS and equity, whatever, but it's really big about attacking the actual form and the dialogue of the yes to the application. And the other one, what I always say the technical attack is, guys, the session. Where people who don't understand authentication don't understand that it's a dialogue. Some exchange goes on, and then the resource says, I trust you, I'll create a session ticket. Well, the hackers know this, and they go, why would I bother this part when I can just go steal the session ticket? I can become Garrett by doing a man in the middle, a man in the browser, some other way, take that session ticket, and then put it there. I never remember if it was an ISSA, ISC squared, or ISAC or whatever show 20 years ago when I was promoting the two-factor, and it was I showed how to hack E-Trade and steal the session ticket, even though you were using two-factor. And there was 90 people, 100 people. Everyone that was an application program was like, yeah, well, that's obvious, Garrett. Why don't you show how to put on your left shoe after putting on your right shoe, right? But the people who didn't get applications how they work were very, very surprised. And that's what I have to remember, that people's background. Programmers understand that, yes, Garrett, we just steal the session ticket, but that's not always understood when we talk about 2FA. Yes, the 2FA itself was not hacked, but a good technical hack, a effective technical hack is just stealing the session ticket afterwards.
So what, I mean, I can imagine technically, theoretically how this is done, but how is this done in the real world? I mean, I know they're coming in through malware on the local machine. They're coming in through like browser extensions. They're coming in through
browser extensions are good. Proxies are good. VPNs are still relevant. I just sent my son to go study at the Starbucks because I'm a real big believer in changing locations to get your brain right. But yeah, steal the Wi-Fi session, steal the network session, find some way to take that session ticket and then replay it. And yes, there are ways to make sure that session replay is not valuable, but there's also a lot of sites that don't use that because I test everything on that. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and it used to be, I think this is less so the case these days, but like the moment that users figured out how to copy things to the clipboard was the moment they started stealing those session tokens out of the address bar, right? Because for a lot of years, and actually you still see this in applications, right? You see the session tickets right there in the address bar, and they copy their whatever from the address bar and they message it to someone, and then there goes their session, right? And so it's sometimes a user created issue, but
and remember what happens. The whole world of two-factor is usually target redirect. And that's what I created in my two-factor target. I go to my target, I get redirected to the authentication. Is that authentication either should either creates a session ticket, and that's not really done that much anymore. What it's really done is it passed back some token back. Okay. And now I was on the team, not I take any credit, I was an implementer, so I didn't invent it. I was on the team that was the first implementing SAML, and it was called S2ML. And I have a t-shirt that I said that, but I got thrown out. Very upset about that. Anyways, it was S2ML, and it was the original SAML. And SAML is really cool. It's think of your blockchain, think of cryptically signed, right? But guess what happened, people? Right? Is that the world said, wow, that's hard. We got to put, crypto information on both sides. like, yeah, but we want to do OIDC where it's just a passcode. I was like, all right, guys, whatever, go for it. I'm not putting down OIDC, but you can't weaken the infrastructure around single sign-on and then blame two-factor. You see what I'm saying about that? So I'm almost defending two-factor there, but I'm just saying that people believe we're secure because we use two-factor have to understand that there's all these other mechanisms, the session ticket, the tokens that are used to pass identity and to pass the trust between two resources, and have been, I don't know what way to say it, intentionally weakened to make it easier to facilitate single sign-on.
We're going through this right now, Garrett. We had an internal discussion in our team because we've got APIs that we expose to the world, right? And the question is, do we want to make it easy for programmers, or do we want to make it eminently secure? And we chose the secure path. And
there you go.
But what that means, right, is you got to deal with encryption, right? And there's libraries to make this easier these days, right? But you do have to deal with some cryptography, even if it's abstracted, right, to really secure that session token.
I want to get sued, but I or just someone getting mad at me. I built this. The first version of my two-factor authentication always used cryptography because I am a crypto geek a bit. Okay, so and that's what it sold it to this company in LA, and they used it. And it goes, Garrett, the people who provide the most money, and I'm not going to call them out what they were because that'll help you guys guess who it was. They said to make it easier for authentication. And what it basically said is get rid of the cryptography. Okay. They turned it into an SMS authentication system. Okay. Because I had multiple ways. And I said, fine, I will just do that. Guess what happened? They got SMS phished, and they got a huge settlements and damage to reputation and all that kind of stuff. And they literally dumbed down a cryptographically secure two-factor system. So how about that? So we can wrap up this section and say not only is two-factor, it's not ubiquitously, there's technical attacks. There's actually different levels of two-factor that some are more secure than others. Some are just better ways of passing a password, which is what an SMS is. Not saying it's bad or good, but it's not aiding in the cryptography or the trusted handshake between the two parties.
So I guess it's two-factor on its own. The fact that it's two-factor isn't enough, but there's levels of two-factor, right? Some are more secure than other, like hardware keys over SMS, and then of course there's the trust factor of like how much trust are we going to lend to this, right? That really needs to be part of the conversation. But you have some other notes here. So let's move on to social engineering. So
that's where we get Bill jumped in because it really is. Because I get a free Kevin hat that I wear because I got that thing, and I always think that it's kind
people
of
don't even know who that is anymore.
Yeah, no, they don't.
But I've got his know before business card with the lock picks in it, and I'm proud of that.
Yeah, here's this, and I'm really agnostic. You break laws, they throw you in jail. Shocking. Okay, whatever, Okay, guys, come on. Let's go. Let's get a hard topic. But he was a social hacker. That's what he was really good at. He was really good at dumpster diving. He was really good at tricking the admin. He was really good at calling up and getting access. That he was good. He because he got caught, and that's the thing. He told all his methods. So social hacking is to think you're secure with 2FA and not understand that hackers are really intelligent and really good manipulators. is not to understand the vulnerabilities. And I'll let you riff on that if you want, Bill, because that's really where I see the biggest flaw in 2FA.
I have a quick story for you. My son-in-law and daughter moved to France. They leased their house out in San Jose. This is 6 months ago. Anyway, the company, the real estate company that was doing it, went and did a background check on the lady that was renting it and ran all the stuff. About a week later, they get a call over from a neighbor and said, "Hey, there's a bunch of people in your house, and I think they're the homeless guys down the street." And so my son-in-law calls the cops and all this. Well, it turns out that somebody stole this lady's credentials out of her garbage and leased the house. They moved in gambling tables. So they had slot machines, they had crap tables in the house. And luckily the neighbor was good friends and called it up. But yeah, so it's like people get smart and they steal stuff and they can do all kinds of stuff.
The hackers will manipulate. They do things like, it's called MFA bombing. You just keep on sending approve, and they send it to everyone. Maybe they hack the AD. They got, 1,000 IDs and they just send approve this and they go, someone will approve. That's one concept.
Which a push off was the industry's answer to, of course, it's it's brand stickiness, right? And so let's be real about that on the apps that we install. But it was an answer to the SMS problem, right? The intercepting SMS messages. Well, you can't intercept it if it's through this encrypted channel. Well, yeah, but users are dumb, right? And I'm going to say that, like, if I didn't eminently know how to recognize that attack, right, because I've been trained in it, because I've studied it, and because I understand the threat space, yeah, I would totally click, like, just let it, make it go away, right? Because it pops up on your phone. You're just trying to scroll through your email, right? And this thing keeps popping up. You can't even use your phone unless you click approve, right? And
right.
And
that's what the MFA bombing is. It's a social engineering tech. You just send it to thousands. My favorite, like, how to manipulate user stories and how to fight them was, I had this one relative family that was like, always called me up and, "Hey, Garrett, we got to debug this and my Windows like this." And I literally said, "I'm not helping you again until everyone gets Chromebooks." Okay, because they did, and they did, and then they met them again at a like, it was Thanksgiving or something. They said, "Yeah, I had this. I was thinking it was a hacker. It turned out, and they were trying to get me install stuff, and it wouldn't install." And I was like, "Yeah, that's why I told you to get a Chromebook." Anyways, that's what I'm saying. The hackers use social engineering to get around 2FA, to get us to install stuff. They use the human dynamic, and that's the second reason why I think two-factor is not enough.
Yeah, and there's a lot of ways that could play out, but unfortunately, that's I don't think that's ever going to go away, right?
No. And to think that, oh, we got 2FA and I'm good. No, you're not. And that's why the third one to me is most important.
Yeah, the insider threat, right?
Yes.
Which is and there's different types of insider threat, right? Because there's like the intentional insider threat, and then there's the unintentional, or like just person not paying attention or not caring threat, and then there's, so what are we talking about here?
And I like what you said, there's different types, because this isn't Mad Men anymore. This is in the 1950s. What's an insider? An insider is anyone, with access to our systems, okay? And the real problem is, you take any company over 100 users, because we do this, Bill is our VP of channels, and he goes these numbers. Someone might have 100 employees. They might have 2,500 accounts that actually have access, okay? Because there's contractors, there's suppliers, there's our partners who are resale partners, there's our partners who are also our integration partners, all that, and they all have different level of access, right? And that's where I really think the new blue ocean is that we've got to get better understanding what access those users has and the classification around those. And that has nothing to do with two-factor, because you've let them in, either they're employees or they're some level, they come through some partner portal. And what is the first thing a hacker wants to do? He wants to escalate the privileges, right? And once he's got that, then it's lateral movement across the enterprise, just sailing away, right? And if those privileges for those partner accounts or whatever are over privileged to begin with, you just made his life easier. He's just having a good old time moving around that enterprise. And that has nothing to do with two-factor. It has to do with concepts of authorization, things like YouAttest does, user access reviews, implementing concepts such as zero trust, and then categorizing categorizing your data, categorizing your enforcement points, and categorizing your users, and coming up with intersections of who gets access to there and blocking
Well,
them.
so let's. I mean, we could probably do a whole show on the insider threat, but let's talk about, okay, so there's lots of ways someone could be taken advantage of, right? They could not care. They could make a mistake. They could unknowingly, their machine could be rooted, right? They could leave their credential in the garbage, right, Bill?
Or share it with a good friend right?
Share it. They could contract someone to do their job for them, overseas, which is we've heard stories about that where people just sub out their own job, right? But in terms of solving for it, right, there are some things we can do. So that's YouAttest's home turf. So what is? I mean, I feel like I've already got the insider story here, and it's a familiar space to me. But how do we tell this story of why? So it's YouAttest to account access, right? It's like the idea, but
Bill, why don't you have some fun? Why don't you tell the audience why YouAttest exists?
Yeah, well, so let's just think of you're in a company, and as soon as you come into a company, you get access to a whole bunch of applications, right, to do your job. But as you mature with the company, you keep getting access to more and more applications. And you might be going from finance to engineering or to sales to marketing. It doesn't matter. What has happened is these people have this access, but they never use it. And that gives the access to anybody outside trying to get it in. So you need to be able to know who has access to what. And it's all about the principle of least privilege, right? Zero trust. You want to go in. Does this person need access to this? This person has access to this, but they haven't used it in 60 or 90 days. So they don't need access to that. That's a problem. So we do user access reviews. We do identity pen tests. Go in and find those orphan accounts, those ghost accounts, find overprivileged accounts. And then one other thing you can use us for, which is great if you're a company, is actually right-sizing your SaaS licenses.
Good point.
So, people that haven't used their license in 30, 60, 90 days, you can recoup those costs. And I'll tell you, one of our healthcare companies does exactly that because the licenses on these healthcare apps are astronomical, in the thousands of dollars. Yeah. So when you think of us, when we're here to support the managed service providers that help their customers, we're charging $4 a user to review and to do audits and find out all the problems. It's a no-brainer.
So I just to sum up that's the solution space, but the problem space is, I'm going to call it Grajek's law. I'm going to coin that here. Is if people stick around a company long enough and they move around and do lots of things, eventually everyone ends up with access to everything, right?
Yep.
And as a trained security professional, I don't want access to anything, right? Like I don't even want access. And I think that's the point of view people should have, is I don't need more access than I need to do my job. And if I do need more access, someone should be approving that. And if I no longer need it, it should expire, right? And so to put that in place, it's really large organizations with very large access control teams struggle with this, right? So as a small company, how do you do that? You need some workflows, right? You need
Bethany, did you work the help desk? Because I used to work help desk, and you know how people get access? They scream at the 20-year-old. Okay,
yeah, and
you want me to go to your boss? I'm like, F you. I gotta leave it here at 4. You know what I mean? And he just gave access to AWS. And if you all don't think that's real, that's real. Okay? That's real IT. Privilege creep is not fantasy. Privilege creep is reality. The longer an ID stays there, the more and more roles and privileges it obtains. It's if there's not a process. That's why the world invented not YouAttest, but the NIST. They documented it in NIST PRAC-4 in the CSF 1.1. They documented that the way we limit privilege creep is to have business and resource owners review the privileges that are on a periodic basis. And what's the periodic? Used to be a year. And it became 3 months. And now the recommended is that should be done on the key resources at least every month.
yeah, and I we'll see where it goes from there, right? I mean, I don't know. We're going to need new methods, and we're going to need to start enforcing that those new methods exist here, because the reality is our accounts, we can't secure our companies by expecting that all of our accounts are going to stay secure, because they're not. Right. So we need to be able to deal with the fact, just like we need to deal with the fact that we need to respond to incidents. Right.
Yeah. So that's why we at YouAttest, we perfected the automation of the review. And then we said, hold it, there's this thing that some people are talking about called AI. Why don't we use AI to help us identify overprivileged accounts and then to send out a review? And it's combining things that are wonderful like AI, but also with things that actually what we should be doing is involving human intervention and discussion.
Well, I can't wait to see this stuff adopted in a more holistic fashion across the industry. In real world space, because again, we're in a pre-record, we're running up against the top of the hour here. So do you guys want to do some quick takeaways? And what do you want to leave our audience with before we move on?
I would leave with what Bill and I have been discussing about. 2FA is wonderful, but what we have to do is actually ensure that the accounts that we have in our systems are rightly privileged. Because if they're overprivileged, we're going to run in damage. And I'll leave it anything else with you, Bill.
No, and those privileges should be pushed to the people to the managers that manage those people, or to the application owners. It shouldn't be some administration person just clicking the buttons.
Yeah, that's a really important point, that the people deciding this, it shouldn't be like one security guy for the whole company. It should be the people who are actually affected, right? So
Fantastic.
All right.
It was a lot of fun.
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, guys. We'll do this
And
again.
Bill wins for background. I like the company name, but it's not an elk. Maybe we put a YouAttest thing on
I'll put a YouAttest sign on.
Yeah, there we go.
YouAttest hat.
There you go. I like it.
All right. Well, next week we have 3 ways phishing simulations prevent cyber awareness failures. We're going to be talking to Ryan Heliogen from ClickArmor and Scott Wright. So until then,